Okay. I have some basic updates today. More kind of like businessy stuff. But on Dockyard side of things, Dockyard is going through the motions of either hiring almost combined the two words, a grant coordinator or contracting with a grant coordinator to find and respond to open source funding grants that are out there. If we can do that, we can, of course, throw more money at Lumen development, and there may be better tax incentives with how we do it, which is likely through forming a 501c3 nonprofit. Apparently, those have a higher chance of success when winning grants. So I still have a lot of work to do in terms of how this plays out. Like, I got to talk to Dockyard legal counsel to find out. We were told by a grant writer that this is what companies do. Something seemed a little shitty about it though, like just forming like a shell 501c3 and then funneling the funds over to a privately held for-profit
this is how
company.
Mozilla is structured.
Mozilla is 501c3 within like a privately owned, or is it the other way around?
It's one of those things where like the corporation, I forget which way it's like the corporation. It's like licensing rights, or like how the Irish sandwich works, where you're like paying for the trademarks. They're held by someone else.
Isn't Mozilla? How does ownership work with the 501c3s?
I don't.
Well, there's
remember.
the Mozilla Foundation.
I just know Mozilla
I believe,
is
a
both.
501c3.
Yeah, like there's a foundation and there's the company.
Yeah.
So which one's which?
It's a good question. I mean, we just heard back. Dockyard's head of HR, Sarah. Well, I mean, everyone in this chat knows who Sarah is. Sarah has a friend that is a grant writer, and this person gave us advice on how to properly structure ourselves to be able to increase our likelihood of success when applying for grants. And apparently, like, nonprofit status is the biggest gap to close. And I don't know if it was a man or woman who the friend was, but this person told us that, made it seem as if this is common practice that companies do this. So I'm still going to go through the process of talking to legal counsel, get validation there. If it seems fine, then we'll start to talk to our accountants. I would suspect that the earliest that this would be in place, maybe not until like late Q2, Q3 anyway. And then at that point, it's a matter of finding and responding to grants. So this isn't something that's going to be a tomorrow thing, but it's something that we're working on for the future. That will benefit Lumen.
Who gives out open source grants usually?
That's the thing, is that, there's the one that you put us in touch with in Europe, and whether or not even a 501c3 in America would help with that is up for debate. But part of the grant coordinator's responsibility is going out and finding those type of grants. And so if we work with a contractor, it kind of reduces our exposure there. And the worst case scenario is that we pay a little bit of money for the 501c3 and legal fees for it. Seems like it has more upside than downside. So Dockyard, talking with John, seems like we're willing to go through the motions to try this out, if it's all legit. That's my update. Hans, you're first in my list today.
Yes, I validated and tested prim-up scheduling. So now I have a really a thing that generates candidates for scheduling prim-ups with from scheduling it at the earliest possible point where every single usage is where it dominates every single usage versus all the other possibilities down to one instance at each usage site. So that actually generates a tree of all the possibilities. And as a byproduct, it also validates that prim-ups are set up correctly and that visibility is correct, which is what I really wanted to do. and I have been adding tests for, or changing the tests. So the issue Luke found when trying to update the new to the new version of EIR, that shouldn't happen again. I think that's.
Sorry, I was muted. Luke?
I got on the Rust Nightly branch for Mac everything except the WASM and the OTP one. The problem is for some reason GitHub Actions won't let me see the full log. I don't know if it's just too old and they like got rid of it because suit big. So I need to get those working, and then for some reason Linux doesn't work. I don't know if it's because it's missing something. The Docker image should already be up, but it seems like all the changes we did worked. Obviously, with the Linux ones down, it could be that me translating, like the 6 lines that should be different with the Linux assembly file could be wrong. I'll have to look at that, or maybe Hans, since I would have to run in a VM. But yeah, it's making progress. But I won't have this Friday because we had the holiday on Monday, so I won't get a lot done except at night for like 1 or 2 hours.
I guess I can go.
Sorry, I was muted again. Sorry about that. I keep doing it. Anyway, Paul, you're up.
So 1 second here. Sorry. So with the time I've had this week, I've been trying to wrap up my big change set. I'll probably have that ready by next week, but kind of depends on kind of that last 5%, as always. Just like Luke is finding out with his changes. So aside from that, I started reviewing your PR, Luke. I haven't finished that yet. And then I also will try and probably do a PR before my bigger change set that introduces the ARM assembly files that correspond to the existing x86-64 code. So that's more or less a summary of where I'm at right now. Just plodding along. It's hard to get very much time. I was expecting to have more time to work on stuff the last couple of weeks, but there's just been a bunch of stuff going on, both at work and at home. So slowly but surely.
Oh, I forgot to mention, but one of the things, either because of my new Mac has more cores or Rust Nightly runs the test runner slightly differently, I actually found that there is a race condition in the way I wrote the OTP tester where I was just using the file stem and the test name that's written in there, and that can cause collisions, of course, because it's just doing the very end of stuff. And if two of the if the parent data structures, and then I copy the name for both, they could hit each other. That used to not happen that often, but happens way more often now for me. And it happens on the test runner too. So I think it's a Rust change with how the test runners run. So I fixed that, and now it uses the full relative path to the test directory to figure out where to put the build artifacts, like in the _build directory for test. So that should fix some flaky tests if you hit it when doing the upgrades. Because it'd be like you could run every single one of the OTP, run it with the Lumen compiler Erlang tests by themselves, and they'd work. As soon as you ran them in as a group, they would start to fail. They would say.
So just to be clear, you're putting there's one build folder that has all of those tests.
Well, it used to be that it had one directory. It had 1 or 2 directory levels, and now it matches the nesting exactly with the actual test files. I just for some reason,
but it's still all under one build folder, so that you can just ignore that and blow it away.
And the build directory is already checked in as ignored. So
I wasn't talking about that. It was just before, previously, I had noticed when we would run the test, it would create files all throughout the test directory tree.
Yeah, that shouldn't happen. I think the actual Lumen ones still do that though, because I saw that O's. Because I don't think I ported. Because I've been working on the OTP one so much, I didn't port. So like they used to be the same code for running the tests.
Yeah.
But as I kept improving the OTP one, I didn't port that back to the Lumen one. So the Lumen one kind of just pukes the .o's all over your like test directory or like the parent directory, I think. So that hasn't fixed yet.
Okay. Well, that was the only thing I was curious about. As long as we're stuffing everything in there, kind of like one corner.
Yeah.
You know, however deep we want to nest stuff in there is fine. But
Yeah,
that'll be nice to not have to worry about those conflicting. I think I was running into that every once in a while too.
Yeah. And I hit another one of those bugs where I had to shove stuff. I mean, you and Hans know about it, but I'm just doing it for the video. Where we access a core format, but we only access an OTP. And because we have to strip the repeated stuff like lib r meta out of OTP so we don't get duplicate symbols, any specialization we use from like core has to be in the runtime because that's the thing that supplies like Rust core specializations because they get stripped off everything else. So it's an unfortunate thing that like if we ever have someone that wants to do a third-party library in Rust and it uses a specialization of like a core format that we don't normally use, we have to put into runtime, it seems, which is annoying, but I don't really know a way around it. Because the hash differs for some reason. I mean, if we could figure out why the hash is different, we could fix this, but right now it's...
The hash incorporates like the crate and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that's how I ended up fixing that bug. But it is it's just something to be aware of. If you ever see, you know, some specialization in core that says it's not there and you do names and like it's there except for the hash, you have to put it into core runtime to get it in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's an acceptable limitation probably for us.
Mm-hmm.
At least at the moment. I imagine that could even bite us in the ass at some point. So we'll have to play around.
Incorporate like information about the crate.
I haven't looked at it, but I think so. If you look, there are actually like some of the rlibs have multiple like core format argument 1 v1 new with like 7 different hashes. I don't know why. Because in theory that's an argument v1 struct, and so it shouldn't care. Like, and it's
any generic types include the crate that they're from.
Yeah.
In the hash, I think that's one of the inputs, and maybe that's the old hash versus the new hash. I know the new hashing scheme was supposed to be better for a variety of reasons, but I think it might have also been because they no longer had the same amount of like inputs into that hash, so it was more stable. We could take a look at that, I guess, but I feel pretty sure that the crate is part of it. Reason being that without that, you could get conflicts between symbols that are mostly the same but different in some meaningful way, I guess. I don't know. I can't remember what all the inputs are. I know type information is one, and then the crate was another. And yeah, I think the original might have even incorporated like something really variable. I'm trying to remember if it wasn't like
there was something because the reproducible build people were complaining about it. I remember that thread. But yeah, so like the general workaround is if we have something where it thinks it can't link, is you kind of do that pub use thing where like you don't directly use the dependency, you put it into the runtime and then you use its version of it that's nested underneath the runtime name. So like there's a workaround, you just have to remember like that's the problem and how to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, we should probably document stuff like that, you know, sort of constraints of the current architecture so that new people can ramp up fairly quickly, and we also can remind ourselves when stuff like that goes wrong. I mean, at this point, we'll probably recognize it, but if we don't see it again for a year, we might
Yeah,
forget
I
what it
can make
was.
a debugging markdown thing or something. Or, yeah. It may be lost on the Elixir Lang that I sent to you, but I sent most of the messages to you and Han, so we won't lose them. And so I think I can get the history out of there and copy it into the READMEs or whatever.
Oh, the Slack messages you sent? Yeah, they're still
Yeah,
there.
because we lose them so fast when we're talking because the Elixir Lang Slack loses stuff so fast.
Yeah.
That has bit me a couple of times. Wanted to go back and look at something, and then
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I don't need that. It's in Slack. And I'm like, ugh, I'm in the forgetful Slack.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's like
would.
random too.
I
Go ahead,
mean,
Brian.
we could invite Paul as a guest into the Dockyard one, but I do think that there's value in having some of those conversations in the public.
I would,
Yeah, I mean, this whole stream was like me saying like this was the next thing I was stuck on. I didn't know if it really mattered that like everyone else saw it.
I would like we've been using Matrix for like all the wrestler stuff, and it's been working really well for us. So I know I would prefer that if there's an alternative for us.
Is Matrix a Slack competitor? This is
It's like a federated chat platform.
I'll take a look. I mean, this is not really relevant to this conversation, but I know that there has been some discussion on migrating the Elixir community out of the Elixir Slack onto something else.
I mean, Discord runs on Elixir, so that would make sense.
I know. there could be that. It's. I think a little bit of it is political too, because I think that there's a consultancy that runs the Elixir Slack, and I think that kind of like taking that out of their hands may. I don't know. I don't want to get too much into that side of things, but anyway, just that. Matrix thing. I'll take a look at it. Whether it's this or something else. But I thought Discord had the same issue, that the chat had a limit on it.
The chat never disappears, but I don't think it ever disappears.
On Discord?
No. So I mean, I would prefer Discord over like the current situation, but I don't really like Discord for programming stuff. But I don't know.
Actually, I thought there was an Elixir Discord already.
I think there is one. It's just like very unofficial.
No one's on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Paul, are you all set?
Yeah, that was all I had. I'll try and finish up that review for you, Luke. So at least you'll have the thumbs up there, and then yeah, if I get a chance to open up my PR with the ARM assembly stuff, that'll happen by the end of the week.
Okay. I think next week maybe we'll spend another bit of time going through the open issues. I don't think much has changed since the last one we did, but it may be worth just revisiting and seeing if there's anything else we can close out.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Talk to you later.
Oh.
Take care.
Bye.